Discrepancy. This is our 5th International Teaching and Learning Forum. I'm excited about this event. But before, I have a couple of things to mention. First of all, we're going to start a little sustainability project with our bottled water. So we decided we take the water from the water fountain. We have glass over there, and if you have your own cups, you're welcome to use those too. And the other thing is, like, we have other things going on after this one, 4 to 6 for TNL's graduate students. So right after this, we're going to go to Chamli, just across the street. So we will not, do the cleaning here first, because you need to be there as soon as possible. So we'll be back here at 6 o'clock. We'll take care of everything. Yeah. So don't worry about that. Don't do the cleaning up. That's our part. That's the best part, right? So yeah. So that's a little announcement to go for today. And as you know, we have two sessions. The first is presentation by Dr. Edwina Carreon about teaching and learning English in the Philippines, or I would say, ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral ang English sa Pilipinas. Okay, you can say that better. And you're gonna have 20 minutes presentation, 20 minutes Q&A, and then 20 minutes break in between. And the second session will be the presentation of the instructors that went to the summer intensive English courses in Indonesia. We have 2 locations, Gorontalo and Surabaya. So that will be also 20 minutes, or more. Maybe we have more people to say things. Yeah, so we hope to finish at 4. And Bob, would you like to say something?
Thanks for organizing this. I think it's great that we're doing these, and I'm glad people are here, and I know more people are going to trickle in. And I unfortunately have to teach from 3:20 to 4:40. But wait, no, 2:20 to 3:40. So I'll have to leave here in a little bit. But I think I'll catch the first part of the show.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just turn over the stage to you.
Okay. I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk about my birthplace, actually, the Philippines. I know that we've talked about Indonesia a lot. The Philippines is right next to Indonesia, so it's good to be able to associate the 2 countries. So I'm going to be introducing a few facts and figures about the Philippines, and then focusing on some challenges particularly related to our interests, teaching English and also learning English, and maybe also, hopefully, there will be time to talk about, prospects for linkages, or even, the teaching exchanges, etc., with Philippine institutions. Okay. So here's a view that I always make sure I get when I go to the Philippines. It's quiet and very peaceful. It's a small city up in the hills, and that's the volcano right there in the middle, and the whole lake is the mouth of an even bigger volcano. So keep that in mind if you plan to go to the Philippines. It will have some kind of relationship with what happens and what's happening in the Philippines. So keep this scene in mind. The other side of the Philippines is the big city, and the big city is alive and jumping 24/7. And part of the reason for that is because I think the Philippines has now overtaken India as the call center capital of the world. Call center. Call center. All right. So it's 12 hours ahead of the U.S. Okay. Its main customers are here in the U.S. So because of that 12-hour difference, 12 noon now is midnight. In the Philippines. So the midnight people working there have to think in terms of noontime here. and so the city is still, you know, full of people. Okay, and you see a little more facts about why. So, location, okay, sorry about that one. I have a map right there. Okay.
What program is this, Edwina?
It's PowerPoint.
Oh, all right.
So this is, the Philippines is right there, right here. And Manila, with those pictures I showed you, is right there. Right. If you heard of the big typhoon, you know, that killed so many people, that was around here, right there, Leyte, in the Leyte area. So typhoons usually come from that direction, from the Pacific. And our friends, Indonesia, is down here in the south, right there. So we actually share some probably languages and you know, ethnic groups because of that geographic location. Okay, so go back to this. Official languages are Filipino, which is Tagalog based. Tagalog is one of the major languages, and also English, and sort of special World English, Filipino English. I have a list of, in my reference list about Filipino English for those interested in finding out a little more about the features and how different or close maybe to American English that Filipino English is. Religion, Roman Catholic, 82+%, 5% Muslim. The Muslim religion and the group, mostly in the southern part of the Philippines. There are about 7,000 islands, and the islands down south is where the Muslim population is. The rest of the religious groups are divided among different, like, Protestant, you know, groups. And what's next here? Ethnic groups, the Tagalogs, Cebuanos, Ilocanos, are those three and more are more Malay groups. Right? I belong to the Tagalog group, and those also represent the major languages. There are about 80 of them. 10 are sort of the major languages. Tagalog is spoken by about 38%, and then the next group, Cebuanos. All right. There's also a big Chinese Filipino population, and mestizos, which are combinations of Spanish and Malay, and also Chinese and Malay. So they're all mestizos or blends. Okay, I probably am a blend of something. Population, this July 2014, the Filipino population reached 100 million. And if you do the math on the 34% and 19% here, you'll see that about 60-something% are young. And that has implications on the educational system, because it's a big drain on the educational system, on the educational administration. But it's also, you know, a challenge that probably can be, you know, turned into something positive. Top foreign students studying in the Philippines, South Koreans, Indians, Iranians, Chinese, Nigerians. And the reason why this is really important is because English is a second language in the Philippines, and for a very long time, the medium of instruction was completely in English. And you know, after, I guess, some discussions about what role English plays in the national life of the Philippines, there's a little more trend to look at it as an asset, and so they're trying to attract people from Asia, you know, instead of going to the US or to the UK, to actually go to the Philippines for English language instruction. registered foreign students about 47. That's registered foreign students. I think there's also a big group that's unregistered, go there as tourists, and then learn English. So I'm sure the figures are a lot higher. Current president he's called Noy Noy Aquino. You must have heard of Corazon Aquino. Noy Noy is her son, right? And their father was assassinated, if you remember. So you know, and from all accounts, he's doing very well. So that, you know, that's good. Current education secretary is Brother Armin Lubistro, FSC. He's a Christian brother. His predecessor was also a Christian, you know, Christian brother, and he was former president of De La Salle University. So before them, there's been no Secretary of Education who is affiliated with any religious group, but it looks like I guess De La Salle and the Christian Brothers have been kind of popular as good administrators, and so he's the current president, Secretary of Education. Latest accomplishment, okay, and I hope the link works. I'm trying to link this up, but I'm not quite sure if I can, get this, sorry.
Does it have to do with someone taking a selfie?
Yes, maybe I don't have to show that one, but I can see it here. We're Makati City, where that little city scene I showed, that's now ranked #1 in number of selfies taken.
In the world?
Ahead of New York.
Calculate that.
I don't know.
I don't know if,
Yeah,
that's something to be proud of, but 258 selfie takers per 100,000 people. I guess that's saying something about that the Philippines is very open to technology. There's another figure that says there are 101 mobile phones per 100 Filipino. So a lot of Filipinos own more than one phone. Computers much lower, but cell phones is very, very important because that's there are 7,000 islands, and the government is not able to build the infrastructure for wired communication. So it was very convenient to actually. It's very convenient to actually have cell phones. Okay, so I think I've shown that. So just quick history. Philippines was under the Spanish period, colonial period. Also went through an American colonial period, and that explains the Spanish, my Spanish last name, the English that I speak. In 1974. Bilingual education was introduced, and so instead of that English medium throughout, Filipino, which is Tagalog based, was used to teach other courses other than math and science. So so it's bilingual, but depending also on what courses. And then the more recent changes in education happened in 2011. And it's still gradually being imposed on the schools. K-12 basic education program. It used to be a K-10. So 2 years were added. It's still very controversial. And then the mother tongue based multi-education program. So in addition to Filipino, which is sort of which is the other medium of instruction, there's the first language, one of the other 78 languages and dialects. Now is part of education. Okay, other statistics, you can see the elementary enrollment is very high, 14-something million, and the high school enrollment about 7 million students. Ratio 1 to 35, 1 to 36. Functional literacy rate is very high, it's about 86%. But the high schools are crowded, the elementary schools are really crowded. And you have morning sessions, afternoon sessions, and evening sessions. And that's because of that, the number of students, the number of
quite a bubble.
students.
Does anybody know what the functional literacy rate is for the United States?
What?
Do we have any reason to believe it's higher or lower?
Mr. Kuto.
Someone find that out.
Higher education,
Before I leave.
609 state universities and colleges, and 1,573 private colleges and universities. There are a lot. They vary in quality, of course. And right now, the top universities, maybe the top 10, or more often people talk about the top 5 universities, try to compete with other universities in Asia in the rankings. Governing bodies in education, that's the Office of the President of the Philippines, you have the higher education directly responsible to the President. Then there's a Department of Education that takes care of the K to 12, so that, and then there's the Technical and Educational Skills Development.
So they are not in this one ministry or secretary?
No, so all, the elementary and high school, this person is in charge of, but there's a commission on higher ed that deals probably more with accreditation and with, the curriculum, but I think they try not to impose so much on the universities. But the universities sort of supervise each other, and there's an accreditation group formed by the different universities to accredit their programs. Okay, so current challenges, and you can see an iconic jeepney. This is the mode of public transportation in the Philippines. This is sort of a modified Jeep from the Second World War, from the Americans. And so that's how, you can see the typical typhoon scene, the jeepneys going through high floods. So,
Typical?
huh?
Typical?
Yes. When the monsoon season arrives, Manila is really below sea level, a few inches below sea level. So when you have a high tide and a monsoon coming, so so you have this. But the jeepneys go through the flooded waters. A few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the ASEAN Economic community was formed, and with Indonesia, Australia, et cetera, so that kind of affected a lot of things going on in education because everybody wanted to be on the same page, including teacher training, the quality of teacher training, the K-12, and then school year shift from in the past it started in June, now it's starting in September. And of course, globalization has, definitely, impacted, and I'm just gonna, on language policy. And so, for example, okay, I'm gonna skip this part here. like the high schools now, you have a sample of some of the courses, English for academic professional, research in daily life, et cetera, et cetera. This is pagsusulat means writing in Filipino, entrepreneurship, et cetera, et cetera. This is kind of a typical course, high school senior course. The basic high school curriculum, oral communication, reading, writing. These used to be the curriculum in freshman college. So what they did was, when they added 2 years, they took the courses from college and moved them down to high school. And now that's the controversy now, because then you have all these college teachers without jobs, because then they changed the curriculum for college. So that's kind of an issue. There's a lot of teacher training that's going on through the Department of Education. So here you have examples of programs and conferences, seminars that they have. It happens all year round. I guess here's an example of how quickly that call center numbers have changed from 117 now to almost I guess it's 1 million people working in that industry in the Philippines. So the connection with education there is this. Isagani Cruz asked, he's an educator, he asked this question. English 3 is taken in the sophomore year of college. Can a student who passes English 3 already become a call center agent without further training? So some people might say, is that all there is to going to college? But because it's so important, and it usually leads to a good job compared to other jobs in the Philippines. So that's why they're starting to kind of look at it as maybe a standard for how good some university degrees are, or some courses. Types of English language programs in the Philippines are traditional university programs, like we have here. You have English 1, English 2. Then there are the non-credits, where you have like a center, which is equivalent to our ALP. Okay. Still university-based. And then there are these English language schools, some of them online, and ESL tourism, and something they call Paradise English. And let me see here. Sort of wanted to get this link done, but it's okay. Hold on, it's not. No, I'm showing it here, so I'm going to turn off my PowerPoint so you can see it. Turn off my PowerPoint. Oops. Sorry, I'm seeing it, but you're not. Not seeing it. I'm seeing it, but you're not. Why is that? I don't know why. But anyway, I don't know why you're not seeing it.
So Paradise English is English for the tourism industry?
Yes. So like Boracay, which is one of the beaches. That's kind of strange that you're not seeing what I'm seeing. It's showing my desktop. Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me turn off all of my. Can you see it? Still not see it. Yeah. So this is like teaching English in the beach. And the German government or German English language centers have linked with the Philippine Department of Education, so they can set up schools. And I think Australia has, also. So, Bob asked me about possibilities of bringing something like the Wuhan program, to the Philippines. And I said that, and I thought about it, and I wondered if, the Philippine institution would see themselves more as a competitor, because they want to set up their own English language, programs. I think the connection that might be needed would be really like training the call center people, because the reason why the Philippines overtook India, they say, is mainly the accent. That the customers preferred the Philippine English was a more neutral accent than Indian English.
I was also thinking about that. We have a big competitor in Singapore.
Yes.
Yeah, Singapore is also a competitor. Thinking about
Yeah,
how
exactly, yes.
you were maintaining your incoming foreign student population of your
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's in education.
And I think that's the reason why they're trying to take the school to the beach. Because that attracts a lot of students to, because then you have like a different scenery. So I don't know why it's not showing it. It's sort of strange.
That's okay. We can look later if you give us the link.
Yes, I can. No, I'm also worried about your,
Oh, we'll figure it out.
your presentation.
We'll figure it out.
So, so yeah, I can see yours here, but now it's not.
Can you get back to your presentation?
Yeah, something strange is going
Maybe we should
on.
unplug it and then plug it back
Maybe.
in.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions for me? Before we
Do you have
move
more?
on?
Oh, okay, yeah, in the meantime.
You said that the accent is preferred to India. How is the listening comprehension of the people at the call center? Is that, do you think, a higher in comparison, or lower, or the same, or?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much it's pretty much the same. I think. Since the Philippines is they're so used to the American accent. I think there's a smoother communication, excuse me, between the caller and also the person who's answering. So it's both the accent as well as they say the proximity to American culture,
Okay.
rather than maybe British culture.
I have a question or a series of questions.
Yes.
First, yeah, I did want to say, as someone who has actually been a call center operator and has worked in that role, I am aware that customers have oftentimes, when, oh my gosh, you're an American, I can understand you, and there is this tendency with Indian English, because it's influenced by the British, and I think the musicality of it, the intonation, is very different. So I think a lot of Americans, they have difficulty, or lack of familiarity in understanding that. But I wanted to ask, is tourism growing? Is it a significant portion of the economy in the Philippines? That's my first question. My second question, great. My second question is, I'm very curious to think about how do Filipinos, and this is maybe just way overgeneralizing, but how do they see themselves? I mean, this issue of English being like a second or second national language, the fact that it's not in continental Asia, but it's sort of offshore, its history of colonialism and recent colonialism. I mean, all of these things I think are really interesting and make it different, very different than other Asian countries. I'd be really curious to know, how do most Filipinos, do you think, what's their sense of being or identity, I guess?
Well, it's actually it used to be a big issue, and I think it still may be. you know, whether to continue supporting, English as an official language, and to continue supporting English as a medium, of instruction. There was, it became controversial enough so that some of the politicians, actually suggested at one time getting rid of English as an official language, and encouraging, not bilingual education, but actually teaching in in Tagalog or Filipino. But there is enough of, well, there are two things. There's one, people have also realized because of globalization that the rest of the world is trying to learn English. And it wasn't really going to, help the economy and, people eventually to unlearn English, when it's already there.
Yeah.
Sort of the economics of it, the economics of the language has really taken over that nationalistic movement. And so that now it's no longer a controversy. In the past it was really controversial enough that I can still remember getting on a train, to, after work to go home. Not the jeepney, but the train. And within the university, I'm very relaxed about speaking in English. Got on the train with a colleague. We continued talking in English. Somebody actually, came and said, "You're Filipino. You should quit the English when you're, outside the university." So that sort of shocked. We looked at each other. It's like, where did that come from? And then we realized, okay, they're Filipinos who feel, very nationalistic, and don't want to hear, another language. But as I said, I think sort of the events of the world has just overtaken that, that movement, nationalistic movement. And there are a lot of mestizos that the blood ties also, that make English just another language, second language. The interesting part of that is that that's very new. Actually, having young learners from K to 3 start out being taught in their mother tongue, which is neither Filipino nor English. Because in the past it was just no. Okay, so if you're Cebuano or Ilocano or somewhere in the Muslim region, the Muslim region, by the way, is now an autonomous region. So there's sort of self-governing part. So they can actually teach using their language, which would be a third language that the Filipino, child would learn. So it's better to add, I think, from my point of view, than, to forget a language that's, around you already. Yeah, so this is Boracay, and it's very well-known beach, area. We get a lot of tourists who skip Manila and go straight to fly from wherever part of the world to this island in that middle part of the Philippines. And I think that's where this group, is, set up.
Do you have any more material to present, or taking questions better?
I'd like to share some of my experience when I was still in Taiwan, and I can sense that the English language is not very far from me. You can see on the map that Taiwan is on top of Philippines, and at that time I tried to subscribe the satellite TV, the Dream TV network, and to receive the satellite signals and to watch the Filipino, not Filipino, but I think all the channels are American channels. almost probably all. So I get the sense that just next to Taiwan and the cultural, the world, they are as very, very different. And I can sense that, and just watching on TV makes me feel that all Filipinos, all people in the Philippines speak American English. But I kind of met some Filipinos in Taiwan, and I heard their accent. Some are American, but some are not. So I just kept wondering, how or what the English as a role or as a language, as a tool, or as a cultural asset, as you said, it is in Philippines. So mostly people there still, as you said, probably they during their daily conversation they still use their native tongues, or they start for youngsters they start to use English instead.
Well, you see that the two pictures I showed at the very beginning, the city scene and then that small town kind of rural scene, that can decide how closer to American English or how comfortable with English the Filipino is, because the farther away from the big city, the less exposure to English, and also the quality of English language instruction is a big factor, because the quality of the teacher is now kind of where a lot of the effort of the Department of Education is focusing, because they've noticed a decline in English language proficiency among the teachers, among the new teachers. So if there is any kind of English instruction that I think the universities would want to improve, it would first be improving the quality of the teachers' English, because they are still teaching history, sociology, the other courses in English, especially the university level. And if I think the Department of Education had a proficiency test, English proficiency test for teachers, and more than half of them failed or did not meet a certain level. So now everybody's trying to set up all of these teacher training programs, focusing on the teachers, not the students. So that's where I think the effort or linkage or opportunities are right now. But that also explains the quality. The smaller towns, they may not have access to television, for example, so they wouldn't kind of develop that exposure to American English. They could also be very nationalistic, so they prefer to speak in their first language. I know my grandfather didn't want any English in the house. I remember that. But my mother is an elementary school teacher, so she was very progressive. And in fact, she and my dad made sure that we were exposed to English first, because they both believed we would pick up the Filipino right away with classmates and with friends. So she started all of us in English first. But that's not every parent. A lot of parents didn't want that.
Edwina,
Yeah.
hearing oh, there you are. Hi.
Oh, hi there,
Hey,
Adrian.
I had I think the kinds of partnerships that OSU likes to make with institutions in other countries, especially with universities, are reciprocal and two-way, as best we can define them and fund them and make them sustainable.
Yeah.
So if you were to give 2 or 3 recommendations about ways that OSU could engage with Filipino institutions around different aspects of interest, what would be the 2 or 3 ones that you would recommend as a good starting point where we might have some early success?
Teacher education definitely is one. And teacher education in terms of, like strategies, teacher training, etc. But also, as I mentioned earlier, the English language teaching, training. There were a number of linkages in the past, for example, with Ohio University and De La Salle, where I came from. There were faculty exchanges, so Filipino faculty would go and teach Filipino language at OU, or Philippine literature or something, and then the Ohio U professor would go and do, I don't know, linguistics perhaps. And I know that the Center for Applied Linguistics, they have the Summer Institute of Linguistics or something. That's been going on with Richard Tucker and all that through all the years in the Philippines. I don't know whether they're continuing that, but I know that summertime in the Philippines, which is March, April, May, that's always a good time for teacher training. So, 2-week, 3-week intensive, programs. USAID and the British Council, but now there's Australia, New Zealand. They're funding training programs also. I'm not, it's not always just education or English language teaching, but technology, some other things. I went on the website of De La Salle, University. They have a big site for their international students and also exchanges. And there are about, I don't know, like 50 or so institutions that they have linkages with. So I don't know what subjects, but they're very open, right now to working, as long as there's some kind of funding.
Right.
So those two. The third, in the College of Education is probably the teaching of math is very important, and the sciences, technology, the sciences. Any other questions?
I was wondering whether identity has been or had been a big issue for people, considering that these English-speaking Filipinos are not Filipinos enough. Are there issues like that in the Philippines? Or
No, I don't think so. Probably not anymore, because as I said, the call center brings in a lot of money. Not that that's, but that's, and then there are so many Filipinos scattered all over the world who work abroad and who send money back to the Philippines. In fact, they're called our hero, the heroes of the Philippines, because during the economic crisis, and when the world was going through the economic crisis, the Philippines was holding steady because of the U.S. dollars being sent by all these, Filipino workers, from Saudi Arabia, from the Middle East, Australia, the U.S., Hong Kong. They're sending money back to the Philippines, and all that money was going through the bank, the central bank or something like that. And so, their knowing English was an asset to get those jobs. So, I don't think it's ever seen as un-nationalistic or un-Filipino. They even have their special, there's even a special line when you return to the Philippines. So you have, the foreign nationals, then you have Philippines. Then there's a special line for the workers, overseas workers, to facilitate their entering and leaving. And there's a special status for somebody like me, who's, I'm an American citizen, but I gave up my Filipino citizenship, but because I was born in the Philippines, I have a special status. And my husband has a special status, so we could stay longer, we could invest, so it's never really taken against us.
I think Indonesian should learn from the Filipino experience, because that is the issue in our country now. The government's the government is afraid that we are going to lose this kind of national identity, and they're trying to abandon using English or teaching English at the elementary level.
You should try to influence. You never try to influence your. I was going to show something that my last file here, just one more time, because just to end the presentation with very last with a picture. Doesn't want to go down. Right there. It died. For some reason this thing is, okay, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, there's my husband wearing his Barong Tagalog, which is the national attire, formal attire for men. And the man on his left is the Secretary of Education. That's Brother Armin, and he's wearing the brother frock. Yes, and that's me.
Wow,
what's
so
the
you met the
occasion?
secretary.
What's the occasion?
It was, we gave something back to the university, and so we have, there is an Edwina Carreon, chair endowment for English language teaching. So I'm not going to sit on it. I'm waiting for somebody to occupy the position. So maraming salamat means thank you very much.
We have selamat also.
Salamat.
Selamat
Yes.
pagi, which good
means,
morning.
Oh, yours is good morning.
Yeah,
Okay.
selamat pagi, morning. So selamat
Ours
pagi.
is salamat.
Yeah,
Thank
selamat
you.
siang.
So did
Thank you,
say
terima
same
kasih.
back? Say something back.
Uh,
Respond back.
it's long. Walang anuman, meaning don't mention it.
Oh, walang anuman.
anuman. No, don't mention it. Meron ba kayong tanong means any questions? Yeah. It's too long.
Maybe one
Okay.
last question?
I have one last